The world knew her as a calm, scandal-free queen, but someone claims that this very woman would slip into abandoned military facilities in the middle of the night, examine Defense Ministry stamped files one by one, and attend to secret meetings about visitors. That someone is Daniel Turner, the close protection officer who shadowed the Queen for 20 years, watching her breath, her gaze, even her private phone calls. And today we're going to look at the lines said to have been written by him. What he describes is not proven fact, so you must decide for yourself what is true and what isn't. But if these claims are real, your view of the Queen, and even of human history, may change. Because what you're about to hear could be the greatest fabrication in history, or one of the darkest secrets ever hidden. If you're ready, let's uncover the mystery Turner is said to have revealed. You've probably heard countless conspiracy theories about Queen Elizabeth II. This time, we're focusing on claims said to have been told directly by her close protection officer. On September 8, 2022, the world lost Queen Elizabeth, and from that day on, nothing was ever the same for Daniel Turner. Turner's claims begin like this. Believe it or not, nothing is normal. Forget everything you think you know about Queen Elizabeth II. The world saw her as the unshakable matriarch of the British Empire, a woman devoted to duty and tradition. But behind that familiar image lay a dark reality, witnessed only by a select few. The truth is, she lived a life filled with secrets that stretch far beyond our world. I'm telling you a hidden side of history. What would you say if I told you the Queen was involved in far stranger and lesser-known events? My life changed forever on the day Queen Elizabeth II died. My name is Daniel Turner, and for more than 20 years, I was one of her closest bodyguards. But I wasn't just a suited observer or a silent shadow. I was given a covert mission to track her contacts, monitor her movements, and, most importantly, document everything about her. Yes, she was fascinated by UFOs. The Queen of England, alongside all her royal duties, had a personal interest in extraterrestrial phenomena, and this interest went far beyond casual curiosity. In the final months of her life, she was restless. Whenever I entered her room, phone calls would abruptly end and coded messages were exchanged. The secret trips to Orford Ness especially caught my attention. Orford Ness, a remote strip of land on the Suffolk coast, was a place steeped in mystery. It could be considered the UK's equivalent of Area 51. This region was once a military testing ground. But what happened there went far beyond the 3 times I accompanied the Queen at night. I can never forget what I saw each time we went. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a routine inspection of a military facility. But over time, I realized something much bigger was unfolding. The Queen would meet with men I did not recognize. They approached her speaking in low tones, with a mixture of fear and reverence that was deeply unsettling. In these meetings filled with briefcases, I saw images of strange metallic objects gliding through the sky, and markings that resembled no known language on Earth. Queen's voice carried questions, spoken with a firmness I had never heard from her before. On my final visit, just a few months before her death, I saw a triangular craft hovering above the facility. Aside from a faint humming sound, it was almost completely silent, and it moved in ways that defied everything I thought I knew. I can never forget the photograph of it. A journalist friend of mine had taken that picture. Even though we tried to suppress it, somehow it leaked to the public. The fear behind those hidden secrets. The Queen normally wore a serene mask of calm, but that night, her face was illuminated by something I had never seen before. An unsettling mix of fear, urgency, and a strange, desperate excitement. After that night, everything changed. One of the Queen's closest advisors, the elderly Sir Geoffrey Hunt, approached me. I heard the crunch of gravel beneath his boots as he walked up, pulled me aside, and spoke in a low, chilling tone. "Some things are better left unseen, Turner, better left unknown." But it was too late. I had seen far too much. Only a short time after that meeting, I began to notice the small things. During security checks, my phone started ringing in bizarre ways, making strange hissing sounds, as if someone were monitoring it or even remotely controlling it. Odd cars were parked in front of my apartment for hours at a time. I told myself it was just paranoia, that my imagination was running wild. But then the Queen died, and on the day she passed, everything descended into chaos. I was summoned to Buckingham Palace. A strange silence hung in the air. Before a young, tense man escorted me to a private study, I felt a kind of tension I had never experienced there before. The room was empty, the curtains were drawn, and the air was thick with a heavy scent. On the desk sat old books and an envelope. It bore the crest of the Ministry of Defense. My heart was pounding as I opened it. Inside were documents I was never meant to see. Transcripts of classified reports referenced something called the Albion Project, a covert operation running since the late 1960s. The Queen wasn't just aware of it, she was actively involved. The documents hinted at a meeting with an unknown entity. Something had been exchanged, but the details were vague, and every road led back to Orford Ness. I closed the envelope and felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I knew the Queen's death wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something far worse. I began examining the room, and suddenly I felt exposed to something. I was being watched. That's when I noticed it. Behind the edge of a bookshelf, a small red light blinking. A security camera aimed directly at me. They would be coming for me in minutes, maybe seconds. I quickly grabbed the documents, slipped them inside my jacket, and stepped out. I fought the urge to run, forcing myself to stay calm as I left the palace. I needed to get to safety. I needed to understand what I had just uncovered. Queen knew something, and I had to find out what it was, and more importantly, what I was supposed to do with it. The dark face of the truth. I didn't have much time to stay alive long enough to tell anyone what I had found, but I needed to know. Was the history we were taught only half the truth? The real story was far stranger, far darker, and it had been hiding in plain sight from the very beginning. It started years ago. During my early days as a protection officer, I had only been serving the Queen for a few months when I first felt that something wasn't right. What I noticed had nothing to do with the protective procedures, crowd reading techniques, or threat anticipation training I had received. But none of that had prepared me for the strange obsession that seemed to be quietly consuming the Queen. I would stand far enough to give her space in the library, yet close enough to intervene if necessary. She always read state papers, historical biographies, diplomatic correspondence. Yet slowly, something different began to appear. Thick, stubborn volumes about unexplained aerial phenomena, mysterious lights, even documents on crop circles. And then there were the late-night meetings. These were handed to her as official briefings. So what did that mean? That all of this was real? One evening, I was summoned to Windsor Castle. I was told only to prepare for a special assignment. The Queen was already seated in a private room. The dim light cast long shadows across her. The expression on her face was unlike anything I had ever seen. It was as if she wasn't herself. Beside her stood a tall, slender man with piercing blue eyes and an odd tone to his voice. "Tomorrow night, you will accompany Her Majesty. You will speak of this to no one. Do you understand?" he said. I nodded, unsure of what to expect. The next night we traveled under the cloak of darkness. The Queen sat unusually silent, her eyes fixed on the horizon with a strange sense of anticipation. We drove for hours until we reached an isolated region. I knew of the place by reputation, Orford Ness, a deserted military testing site wrapped in secrecy. Local legend claims strange things had happened there during the Cold War, yet I never imagined the Queen could have any connection to it. The wind swept across the barren land, carrying the salty scent of the nearby sea. In the distance, a cluster of ruined buildings appeared, their windows pitch black. As we approached, each structure looked stranger than the last. Oddly dressed scientists, intelligence officers whose eyes darted as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. I followed as they guided the Queen. There were doors leading into a bunker-like building, thick and reinforced. Inside, the hall was filled with writings marked by strange symbols, and star charts were piled across the tables. They spoke in low voices. Their words were little more than whispers. Nothing about it was normal. They were talking about extraterrestrial beings and about an encounter, the dark depths of the secret. A meeting was taking place between world leaders. One man with gray hair and eyes that seemed to burn with a strange, frantic energy looked at the Queen with admiration. "Your Majesty," he said, "they know what we're listening to, closer than ever before." Then he turned to her with a determined expression. "We must be prepared for their arrival." I stood there in shock, wondering whose arrival we were preparing for, and why this conversation was being led by the Queen of all people. The training that had drilled into me the rule, "Keep your mouth shut, observe, and do not question," echoed in my head. But what was happening here resembled nothing I had ever imagined. The more I listened, the more I realized that whatever was unfolding was far from ordinary. The meetings continued in the months that followed. Each one was more secretive than the last. I accompanied the Queen repeatedly, and with every visit, the mystery only deepened. The men she met were always the same, a tight-knit group, each with his own specific role. There was Dr. Morrison, once employed at Jadal Bank, a physicist who spoke of energy structures and insisted, "This is not of this world." And there was Colonel Harris, a former RAF officer who had witnessed inexplicable phenomena during test flights. Joining every discussion was astronaut Lennox, who claimed he had seen an object circling the Earth at impossible speeds. The tension grew sharper each time a meeting from 1967 was mentioned, one that allegedly occurred not between nations, but between species. It was said that certain agreements were made at Orford Ness. These agreements were rumored to involve not just technology transfers, but also the very future of humanity. Then one night, we arrived there far later than usual. The cold cut straight through to the bone, and violent winds howled outside. I stood at my post as always. My eyes moved quickly between the Queen and the men, whose conversations seemed unusually tense that night. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. It was so deep I felt it in my chest before I even heard it. The room fell silent. Even the scientists stared out with wide frozen eyes. I turned and saw a craft silently gliding above the facility. It was triangular, with 3 faint lights glowing at each corner. It rotated slowly in a way that defied every physical law I knew. My heart pounded against my ribs. It was enormous, yet the only sound was that unsettling hum. The Queen stood in front of the window, her face pale, her hands gripping the edge of the table. She was whispering, almost to herself. I didn't know who they were, but the way she spoke sent chills down my spine. Then Sir Geoffrey appeared at my side, his voice stern and cold. I must have looked tense, because he leaned in and murmured, "You're seeing too much. Remember your duty, and remember what happens to those who set their eyes where they shouldn't." I knew I should have heeded the warning, but it was already too late. I had seen it, and in that moment I knew there was no going back. The craft hovered a little longer. Then, without any warning, it shot upward at an impossible speed and vanished into the darkness of the night. The room stayed silent, the tension so thick it could have been cut with a knife. The Queen turned to me, her expression unreadable. "We're done for tonight," she whispered, but her voice carried a certainty and something else I couldn't quite decipher. I could feel the fear, or maybe it was the sinking realization that I was thinking about resigning as we left the facility. Everything spun in my mind. What had we just witnessed, and how was the Queen involved in all of this? One thing was clear. I had stepped into a world that had never made sense to me. After the Queen's death, I found myself trapped in an uncertainty where the truth was stranger than any fiction, and where everything I had seen could never be taken back. Buckingham Palace felt hollow, filled not only with grief, but with a deep, suffocating unease. When I was called in for the funeral arrangements, there was something else hanging in the air, something unspoken, heavy. In the chaos of her passing, I found myself drawn into her private study, a room I rarely entered unless specifically instructed. The door was slightly ajar, the inside dimly lit. As I stepped in, I felt an odd pull, as if some invisible force was guiding me. Papers were scattered across the desk. I had no logical reason to be there, yet something inside me held me in place. Then I noticed it, a barely visible indentation on the side panel of the desk. I pressed it. With a soft click, a hidden compartment opened, and my heart began to pound. How important could something be if it needed to be hidden even from those closest to her? I hesitated for a moment. Then I reached in and turned the dial. The code was wedding anniversary, and the lock clicked open. Inside, I found thick documents, files marked with the crest of the Ministry of Defense. I immediately realized these had no place here, not inside a royal residence. They certainly weren't supposed to be in her personal possession. I took a deep breath, set the files on the desk, and opened the first one. It was labeled Albion Project. I opened it, and my breath caught in my throat. The pages were filled with technical jargon, classified correspondence, and overflowing photographs. The very first page was a letter from the Ministry of Defense describing an incident at Orford Ness in December 1967. It referenced the landing of an unidentified craft and stated that the event was of extreme national security importance. It was marked eyes only, and the Queen was listed among the very few who had clearance to see it. My hands trembled slightly as I kept reading. The Albion Project detailed far more than the landing of an unidentified craft. It described an ominous meeting, negotiations between representatives of the British government and a non-human species, references to technological exchanges, biological samples, and protocols for future contact. I could hardly believe what I was reading. The Queen had not been a passive observer. She had been an active participant. The meeting transcripts were annotated with her initials carved into the margins, along with notes written in her own hand. She had met with generals, scientists, and foreign leaders. Letters from the secret coalition, the White House, the Kremlin, and other world capitals were addressed directly to her, each expressing concerns, each speaking to her personally. I turned the page and found a photograph that froze my blood. The Queen stood beside a strange metallic object, her expression severely grave. Around her were men in military uniforms and dark, unmarked suits. But in the background, long, distorted shadows appeared, shadows that didn't look human. And then there was the ledger, a thick book filled with names, dates, and coordinates. It documented every contact event, reports of strange lights in the sky for every visit since 1967, unexplained disappearances and covered-up incidents, all coded as Type A, Type B, Type C. More than I could ever count, I began to understand how deep this went. This wasn't a single incident at Orford Ness. This was a coordinated effort stretching across decades, involving the highest levels of power, government, and apparently the monarchy itself. The Queen hadn't just been briefed, she had been deeply, directly involved, a guiding force. Whatever I had uncovered, It was monumental. I reached the final page, where a single line stood out, handwritten in ink. Preparations for their return have begun. I stared at the words. I felt like I was losing my mind. Who were they, and what did they mean to the Queen? Why had she felt the need to hide these documents even from her own government? Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching the study. I shoved the papers back into the safe, closed it, and stepped away. As the door opened, the panel slid back into place. Sir Geoffrey Hunt was the one who entered. When he saw me standing by the desk, he narrowed his eyes. "Turner," he said slowly, "what are you doing here?" I forced a smile and told him everything was fine. My pulse was racing. He stared at me for a moment, then nodded. But his gaze lingered on me as though he was weighing every word I said. "Be careful, Turner. You know there are things you're not supposed to do," he warned. I had seen the forbidden files, and with them, a carefully hidden side of the Queen's world that history would never acknowledge. I needed to learn more about what the Albion Project truly was. But why was Mr. Hunt so close to the Queen? And why was he so mysterious? My mind was overflowing with questions. I also knew that from this point on, every move I made would be watched. And whoever they weren't done with us yet. For days, I studied those documents. By the time I stepped out of the palace, I knew far too much. And everywhere I went, eyes followed me. I was being watched in every possible way. Wherever I drove, a car would appear just far enough behind me, hovering, slowing, keeping its distance but never leaving. Then my phone began to glitch with static. Its battery drained unusually fast. When I called an old colleague, he picked up quicker than normal. He said my name, and then I heard a sharp click, and the line dropped. I was only a few kilometers from home. Headlights appeared behind me, blindingly bright, far too close. I glanced in the mirror. I couldn't make out the driver, but the way the vehicle veered toward mine made their intention clear. I hit the accelerator, trying to get away. I thought I could outrun them, but they rammed me hard. I fought the steering wheel, struggling to control the car, but it spun out, slammed through a guardrail, and rolled into a ditch before coming to a violent stop. For a moment, everything went black. Steam rose from the hood as I pushed the door open. Holding my head, rain poured down, drenching me. I expected the other car to follow, to finish the job, but it had vanished. What followed wasn't a coincidence. Someone sent me a message, "Stop digging," and another warning implying that next time they wouldn't miss. I slipped through the shadows on my way home, every instinct on high alert. The next day, I tried to think through everything in detail. Then I found it. A note slid under my door, a single word written plainly, "No." I was shocked, but more than that, I was afraid. Whoever was behind this clearly had eyes everywhere, even within my own circle. Another move from them felt inevitable. Weeks passed in a haze. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Anonymous threats, strangers brushing past me on the street, whispering something before melting back into the crowd. I tried reaching out to old colleagues, but all of them were gripped by the same evasive fear. I went to a place where I knew someone would eventually show up, and I met a man. His face carried the exhaustion of someone who had seen far too much. His eyes scanned the room sharply before they ever settled on me. In a low voice, he said, "I know what you're looking for, and I know why they want you silenced." He claimed he knew everything that needed to be known. I asked who he was. "Richard," he replied, "I was with MI5 until I got too close to something they didn't want me to find. I saw things, witnessed things, investigated things, and learned things," he said. "You're talking about the Albion Project," I said. His faint smile vanished, replaced by a hard expression. "Yes," he said. "The Albion Project wasn't just a project. It was an agreement, a deal made between certain governments and an extraterrestrial species. They were supposed to bring us technological advancements, new energy sources that could cure diseases. But things hadn't gone the way they planned. My mind raced to assemble the pieces of what I already suspected. Richard's eyes had seen the beings themselves. He called them simply the visitors. He said the governments knew far more than the public ever would, and that they were negotiating over far more than anyone imagined. The original deal was meant to be peaceful, cooperative even. But the visitors had their own agenda. They gave us a bit of technology, but in return they demanded something we couldn't or wouldn't provide. And when the negotiations failed, people began dying under mysterious circumstances. I swallowed hard as Richard continued, his words snapping everything into place. He had once asked what role the Queen played in all of this. His voice dropped to a whisper. They told me the Queen was the point of contact, but when the deal went bad, everything stopped. She knew too much. They couldn't move against her directly without exposing themselves. So they waited. They watched her. They tried to limit her influence. A shiver ran down my spine. And now that she's dead, they're cleaning up, I said. Richard nodded, confirming my worst fear. Be careful, Turner, he warned. Trust no one, not even your own shadow. Then he walked away, leaving me with 1,000 unanswered questions, and a dawning realization that the truth was much bigger and more dangerous than I had ever imagined. The stakes were far higher than I thought. This wasn't just about the Queen. It wasn't just about the government. It was about every nation on Earth. And what was coming next, I had become the next target. And I needed the missing piece of the puzzle that had consumed my life ever since the Queen died. After the Queen's death, I found myself wandering through winding paths of thought. I asked myself over and over whether they had truly given us a highly advanced technological device or technique. And if they had, was there a team that possessed it, or one struggling to decode it? The mysterious phone call. After that encounter, I received a secret call in the middle of the night. Someone gave me an address far from where I was and said they would be waiting there. Driven by overwhelming curiosity, I went. By the time I arrived, I had already gone too far to turn back. Now inside one of the old bunkers, I met a scientist who had vanished years ago. Someone rumored to have gone underground to escape whatever dark force had been pursuing him. His name was Dr. Avery. He was cleaning a machine called the Lucens. With sunken eyes, a tall and thin frame, and a tense energy radiating from him, he stared at me. He moved around as if expecting someone or something to burst in at any moment. "You're Daniel Turner," he said, as though he hadn't used his voice in years. "I've been expecting you." I asked who he was, what he was doing here, and what exactly was happening to me. Dr. Avery began talking about the Albion Project. "This was meant to mark the beginning of a new era," he said. "The visitors offered us knowledge and technology far beyond anything we had. They said they wanted to help us, but something strange happened." He paused, narrowing his eyes. "They wanted to study us, understand us, and in return they gave us technology, but we were like children playing with fire." A chill ran down my spine. I asked what had gone wrong, though I was afraid of the answer. Dr. Avery's face darkened. "We misused it. We turned it into a weapon. We tried to twist it for our own purposes. Accidents happened, things that should never have happened. Catastrophic events, natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, even the Chernobyl meltdown. None of these were accidents. They were the consequences of meddling with forces we did not understand." He looked at me as my mind raced to grasp what he was saying. "What does the Queen have to do with all this?" I asked. Avery's expression softened. He almost looked sad. "I know you want to tell the world," he said, "but I also know this has stayed confined to just a few countries. The deal went bad. We were played. She wanted to expose everything to clear things up, but the powers that be could never allow that. It would shatter the world order. everything would collapse. That's why they wanted to make sure she stayed with the project. When he fell silent, I knew exactly what he was implying. I felt anger boiling inside me. Anger at the lies, the manipulation, the needless suffering. That's why, I'm sorry to say, they allowed her to die. Dr. Avery nodded, his tired eyes fixed on me. They'll get rid of you too, he said. Unless you're very careful, of course. I knew he was right. I had already crossed the line. There was no going back. I pulled out my phone, determined to tell someone the truth before it was too late. I turned on the voice recorder and started talking. I told everything I had learned, everything I had seen. I didn't care if it sounded insane. The world needed to know. I finished speaking as calmly as I could, but my hand trembled as I said, "The truth is out there somewhere, and they've been hiding it from us for a very long time. The Queen knew everything, and they silenced her. But they won't silence me the way they did her." Right then, there was a knock at the door. I froze. My heart was pounding in my chest. The knocking grew louder, more insistent this time. I looked at Dr. Avery. "Run! Now!" he whispered. They had found me. I took a deep breath. Everything was in my head. They could silence me, but they couldn't silence the truth forever. As the door burst open, I turned off the phone. Whatever happened next, I knew the story was now out there, and someone somewhere would hear it. Then they came for me, and everything went dark. The truth is, we were lied to, carefully, deliberately, systematically. The truth is, there are things out there they don't want us to know. Things that would change everything we think we know about our world, our history, our future, the truth itself. It's all there, hidden in plain sight, and it's up to us to find it. And that's without even getting into the mystery of the Queen. I never figured out who or what that tall man with the strange voice by her side really was. The problem is, I'm not sure I ever wanted to, because I was far too afraid. This is where Turner's account ends. Now let's briefly look at the reality side of the story. What I've told you is based on a text circulating on the internet, attributed to a bodyguard named Daniel Turner. However, so far in open sources about Queen Elizabeth II's official bodyguards, palace staff, or security team, there is no confirmed record of anyone described as Daniel Turner, who served as the Queen's close protection officer for 20 years. Similarly, there are no official documents, academic studies, or reliable historical records supporting an agreement called the Albion Project, allegedly made between the British government and extraterrestrial beings. We should also not forget this. In history, especially during the Cold War, there have been many secret operations and agents whose names never appeared in official records for years, or only surfaced decades later when archives were opened. If we remember that even programs like the Manhattan Project or MK Ultra were denied for a long time and only gradually acknowledged later, then it's not so easy to say that anything absent from open sources today is definitively impossible. Even so, the claims in this video for now seem to be a narrative that leans on real locations and a real historical backdrop, but cannot be verified and may well be fictional. In this video, I have treated this dark story not as a proven fact, but as a mystery file open to discussion. So what do you think about all this? Do you see this story as the paranoia of a bodyguard who claims to have spent years walking the palace corridors, following the Queen's every step like a shadow? Or as the between-the-lines truth of something history books will never dare to write? Are we really talking about an agreement made with visitors and a project hidden from the world? Or is this just the human mind's habit of connecting separate mysteries into one grand conspiracy picture? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's discuss it together. If you'd like to keep questioning these kinds of mysterious claims with us, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new uploads. See you in the next mystery.